what's up, everybody? Now, I know what you're thinking. I actually didn't get a haircut. It caught on fire while I was lighting a cigarette. Today, we're going to check out the top layer of this iceberg about rabbit holes on the internet. I'm going to cover the whole thing throughout the course of a few videos, and then at the end, I'll put it all together into one big video. Originally, I was going to cover the entire iceberg in one video, but I told you guys I was going to get back to a once-a-month schedule, and I just can't crank out like a 2-hour video every month. And then I was going to do 2 layers per video, but by the time I got done with the first layer, I already had like 7 pages written, so I figured I'd just throw it out there. There's a lot of really interesting stuff on this iceberg, so I won't keep you waiting. Go ahead and grab a nice chilled beverage. I got my water right here. And get some of that crazy bread from Little Caesars. Starting off, we've got Captain Coochies key lime pies. So, back in 2009, a series of very strange comments and posts were being made all over the internet under random articles and different websites, and all of these comments mentioned a restaurant called Coochies Key West Cafe, and they were just raving about how good the food is there and how good their key lime pies were. The thing is, Coochies Key West Cafe closed down in 2006 and never reopened. So all of a sudden, 3 years after this restaurant closed, there were all these posts talking about how good their food was. The usernames of the people these posts were made by varied, but they were often just random celebrities. These posts pretty much completely stopped in 2016, which is right about when people started to discuss them on Reddit. The man who owned Coochies Key West Cafe was named Oswald Pelez, and from the sparse information available about him, it does seem like he was a pretty eccentric guy. During the time most of the posts were made, he would have been in his 60s, which would match up with a lot of the pop culture references he was making in these posts. According to someone on Reddit who allegedly knew someone who dated a waitress at Coochies Key West Cafe, Oswald Pelez was kind of crazy, but I'm gonna take that with a grain of salt. To this day, it seems like the person or people behind all of these posts remains a mystery. It's speculated that if Oswald Pelez was the person behind these posts, he may have been trying to cover up some sort of bad publicity so that when you searched his or his wife's name, you would just find all these posts talking about how good their food is. Unfortunately, it looks like Oswald Pelez passed away in 2022 at the age of 68. You can still visit the restaurant on Google Maps today, and it's all boarded up. Someone who went to check it out found that it's pretty much empty, and a room in the back is just being used as storage. Cicada 3301. Cicada 3301 was a set of cryptography puzzles that took place on the internet from 2012 to 2014. The people behind Cicada 3301 still aren't known, but they essentially had the goal of recruiting other intelligent cryptographers to work on a project. This project hasn't been disclosed, and the final puzzle has yet to be solved. Marble Hornets. Marble Hornets is the name of a web series that began on YouTube in 2009, 10 days after the original images of Slender Man were introduced on the Something Awful forums. The series follows a film student named Alex who abandons filming for a short film called Marble Hornets and then gives the tapes to his friend Jay before moving away. Jay looks through these tapes and documents any strange occurrences he finds, and several times throughout the footage, Slender Man is seen stalking Alex. In the plot of Marble Hornets, Slender Man is depicted as a character called the Operator. The more time Jay spends looking at these tapes, the Operator begins to start stalking Jay as well, who develops intense paranoia and begins filming every minute of his life. The story gets a lot more complex, and it is pretty interesting. The series ended in June of 2014. Ash Vlogs. Ash Vlogs is the name of an ARG that began in 2018 and took place through several different websites like YouTube, Instagram, and Snapchat. Essentially, it was about a girl named Ash who uploaded vlogs to YouTube, but she ended up getting kidnapped, and people had to find clues throughout the internet and sometimes even in real-world locations in order to solve the mystery of what happened to Ash. It looks like the ARG was never finished because a few years ago, the creators Danny and Michael Philippou abandoned it to work on a movie called Talk to Me, Aeritos. So Aeritos was the name of an alleged computer program that was used by several major corporations across the world, and this algorithm would target and delete any mentions of itself online and was used for mass censorship. The idea of Aeritos originated in 2014 on 4chan, where someone made a post saying that they knew a homeless woman that worked at a really shady company that was in the process of closing down all of their stores in the country. And because the company was going out of business, everything was kind of falling apart and work was really disorganized. So on one of this woman's last shifts at whatever business this was, she was working with an IT guy who had been delegated to just do some random labor in a warehouse because at that point they had no IT issues. So the woman and this IT guy were both given tape guns and were told to just start boxing stuff up. However, the tape gun that was was given to the woman had the word Aeritos written on it. And the IT guy recognized that word because at a job a few years prior, some of his higher-ups were working on an algorithm to flag any employee that searched for the word Aeritos, and they would then be fired. Following this post, a few other people on 4chan started talking about how they had heard of the Aeritos algorithm during their years in computer science. This led to a bit of an investigation, and eventually people stumbled upon a YouTube channel called Chronos for Life Jurassic Park. And this channel was seemingly run by a man who believed that YouTube and other large corporations were stalking and terrorizing his family. And this channel had mentions of Aeritos even before the posts on 4chan. Another YouTube channel was found mentioning Aeritos called Todd Ellsworth, and this channel had uploaded a video called KFC Murder Chicks Golden Age of Gross Mystery, full EP. And in the description of this video, there was a reference to Aeritos. The KFC Murder Chicks are a band that make experimental rock music and seemingly have several connections to the Aeritos situation. The members of the KFC Murder Chicks are marketed as being homeless, which would connect to the original 4chan post. Additionally, one of the KFC Murder Chicks did actually work at a warehouse for some time, which also connects back to that 4chan post. At the end of the day, it looks like Aeritos was a made-up computer algorithm or failed ARG that was ultimately just to promote the KFC Murder Chicks. I'd say their music is okay. I just kind of don't like how it feels like the vocals are on top of the music instead of part of the music. The reason you might see this image associated with Aeritos is because Todd Ellsworth also had a Twitter account, and he had posted the image, which was a police sketch of some guy in Maui, Ted the Caver. Ted the Caver was a short story that took place on an Angel Fire website called Ted's Caving Page. The page outlines how Ted and his friends uncover a small opening in a cave that they hope to lead to a larger cave. So they come back and bring some pickaxes and start digging at this hole to hopefully make it large enough to enter and explore. However, this passage turns out to be very thin, and as they progress through it, they see strange hieroglyphs on the walls, and they even feel wind. The cave begins to really haunt Ted and his friends, with them experiencing nightmares and hallucinations, and in the final entry, Ted brings a gun into the cave because of how overwhelming his feeling is that there's something dangerous in there, and that's where the entries end. So I guess whatever was down there got the best of Ted. This story was published in 2001 and is often credited with being the first creepypasta, Petscop. So Petscop was the name of a horror web series that was run on YouTube from 2017 to 2019. The story goes that a guy named Paul found the disc for a game called Petscop in his house, and he uploads YouTube videos of his gameplay as he progresses through the game. The game and the YouTube channel kind of start to take a toll on Paul, and eventually some issues arise within Paul's family surrounding the game. It would take a really long time for me to go through the whole story, and a lot of it is up for interpretation, but it is really interesting. MatPat has a few videos on it, and just a couple months, Wendigoon made a whole video explaining it. Alan Tutorial. So, Alan Tutorial is the name of a YouTube channel that began uploading videos in 2011 and finished in 2014. These videos started out as a seemingly mentally ill guy recording these really mundane and kind of useless tutorials.
Once you get ready, you pour in the Perrier, and then you add more dirt.
He ends up destroying his room and eventually gets kidnapped by some group of people. In a bit of a panic once he's kidnapped, he briefly switches to covering the news, but he gets back to making tutorials pretty soon. The last video is just called Tutorial, and he escapes his captor's house. The guy behind Alan Tutorial is named Alan Resnick, and he said it was just some sort of art project. This house has people in it. This house has people in it is referring to a short film that was uploaded to YouTube in 2016. And, you remember Alan Resnick from 15 seconds ago. He actually directed this short film, and the entire thing is shown through the perspectives of several security cameras throughout the home. It starts with these two parents in the kitchen cooking food and playing with their baby, and in the other room there's a little boy named Jackson and his grandma, and the whole family is preparing for Jackson's birthday party. In the kitchen, the parents' teenage daughter Madison is laying flat on the floor, probably because she was upset about something and wanted to protest her parents. After laying there for 2 hours, her parents try to get her to get up, and eventually they even try physically moving her, only to discover that she is completely stuck to the ground. They start to panic, and Madison starts to slowly sink through the floor and into the ceiling of the basement below, where there's a guy doing some work down there. He comes upstairs briefly to alert the parents that he can help, and he tries to push on Madison's face from below with a wooden plank, but that doesn't really do much. The father runs into the living room to let the grandma hold the baby while he figures this out, but she just puts the baby on the floor and lets it go crawl wherever it wants. The father really starts to lose it.
I've always been so beautiful.
You need to stop right now!
Love each other through grinding teeth!
and the mother goes and gets a mattress for Madison to land on when she makes it all the way through the floor. All the while, a bunch of guests for Jackson's birthday party have congregated out front as Jackson takes down all of his birthday stuff because I guess he figured today wasn't, the best day for a party. Once Madison falls all the way through and onto the mattress, the security camera flashes dark for a second and then cuts briefly to a shot of the mattress completely empty, which suggests that Madison continued sinking through the floor of the basement and I guess just kept going down. There used to be a website that went along with this film, and it was supposed to be the company website of the business that made the security cameras. I feel fantastic. So, I'm sure you've seen this video before. A lot of people think this video is pretty creepy. It's an animatronic woman singing repetitive phrases like, "I feel fantastic," "You feel fantastic," and then eventually, "Please leave, run." When this video first came out on YouTube in 2009, a lot of people were speculating some pretty crazy things. Some people were saying that the guy who made this video was a serial killer, and the different clothing that the android wears in the video were the clothes of his victims. This is unfortunately not true. It turns out that the singing robot in the video is called Tara the android, and she was made by a guy named John Bergeron, and he just kind of liked making robots and abstract music. Unfortunately, from what little information there is available on John, it looks like he passed away in 2005, but now his son is in possession of his robot creations. The box of crazy. So, back in 2013, someone on Reddit posted some photos of a wooden box that contained over 30 years of illustrations and texts that were written by this guy named Daniel Christensen. Daniel seemed to believe that in 1977, during a tornado in Tampa Bay, Florida, he had made contact with aliens, and the purpose of this box was to document and replicate the alien technology he had seen that day. He claimed that there was a tornado, and within the tornado there were these lasers that shot out, and he figured that this was the work of aliens. Daniel had hundreds of pages of documentation that explained how to construct the mechanisms he believed to have been used by the aliens, and according to a woman who lived in his apartment after he died, he had built a machine that he believed allowed him to astrally project and communicate with aliens. Now, there is no record of a tornado occurring on July 7th, 1977, which is the date Daniel provided. However, on top of the St. Petersburg Pier, there was an art installation which used lasers and mirrors to put on a pretty big lights show. So it looks like that's probably what Daniel saw, and given his prior interest in alien technology, which was documented in the box, he likely just attributed those inexplicable lasers to aliens. The documents within this box spanned over the course of about 40 years and outlined all these schematics for different machines. There's a lot of speculation about who Daniel Christensen was or what he was like, but there's pretty much no information about him online. U/Yay Video Games. So, back in 2010, someone made a Reddit post on r/gaming, which simply inquired about people's favorite mod for the Elder Scrolls. There were a few pretty standard responses, and then there was one response by an account called Yay Video Games, which read, "The uninstall button. The game is great and all that, but god, it is hard to fully remove all the junk it leaves behind on your system. You really need to check out that mod when the time comes to get rid of it. Otherwise, I think Oscuro's Oblivion overhaul is a nice start." When asked exactly what he meant by this, he just said, "The uninstall button. The game is great. Ubisoft goes Steamworks bye-bye, always on DRM. But you oft go work, always on work DR. Check out the junk it leaves behind in you." Yay Video Games then made over 4,000 comments, all variations of the words, "Ubisoft goes Steamworks bye-bye, always on DRM." And still, nobody knew what he meant by this. His account was then suspended because he was spamming. Someone else on Reddit looked through the post history of Yay Video Games and found that he often made posts on a different subreddit called r/cleanliness, which only had a few members that actually posted. All of these other members posted with the same cryptic wording that Yay Video Games did, which led a lot of people to figure that all these other accounts were also Yay Video Games. In some older posts on these other accounts, he revealed that he suffered from chronic pain, extreme depression, anxiety, hallucinations, and chronic fatigue syndrome. He also revealed that he used to be a Jehovah's Witness before leaving the religion. Once this whole situation started gaining some traction on the internet a few years later, someone made a post on a subreddit dedicated to the mystery, which read, "Hi guys, I'm Luke, and I'm one of Yay Video Games' best friend. Ask me anything." Luke explained that Yay Video Games' real name was Lyndon, and the spam was a culmination of Lyndon being in a pretty dark mental state, and it was just a really dedicated joke. Unfortunately, Yay Video Games did take his own life in 2015. Time Cube. The Time Cube is a theory created by a man named Gene Ray, which attempts to explain all of physics, education, time, and reality. Ray argues that each period of time that the rest of the world considers a day is actually 4 separate days happening at the same time. These 4 separate days are called sun up, midday, sundown, and midnight. Jean Ray made a website to explain the time cube theory, and for some reason, all the text on it is center justified. Ray offered $10,000 to anyone who could disprove the time cube theory. When he went to speak on the theory at MIT, no professors even attempted to disprove it, which I guess speaks on the validity of the theory. Reportedly, Jean Ray said that he didn't really like being an internet celebrity, but felt it was a position he needed to hold to enlighten the masses. Unfortunately, Jean Ray passed away in 2015, but the Time Cube website is still up, and you can go check it out for yourself. Apparently, they need money because they have their Bitcoin donation link on there. Gilbert Garfield. So, Gilbert Garfield is the name of an ARG that began on YouTube in 2020. Basically, it's about this guy named Max, who finds a lost episode of the show Garfield and Friends, which stars the comedian Gilbert Gottfried.
Would invent lasagna.
And the episode is aptly named Gilbert Garfield. So, as Max dives into the mystery surrounding this lost episode and does his best to gather information about it and its producer, Feral One Productions, he really starts to lose it. Feral One Productions is depicted as this really dangerous and evil corporation, and it's eventually found out that they were only able to get Gilbert Gottfried on the show because they cloned him. In November 2023, Feral One Productions seized Max's assets and completely rebranded his YouTube channel shortly before its possession was taken by the CIA and Department of Homeland Security. It's a pretty involved ARG, and it is pretty interesting. Polybius. Polybius is the name of a rumored arcade game, which is part of an urban legend. It's stated that in 1981, when arcade machines were getting pretty popular, there was a mysterious up-and-coming arcade game called Polybius, which appeared in Portland, Oregon. And this game was so entertaining that people would just not be able to stop playing it. And every few weeks, men dressed in all black would come to these arcades and gather information about the game, and it's said that after playing this game, people would experience seizures, amnesia, insomnia, and hallucinations. The machines that Polybius was in were reportedly inducing these effects by spraying people with these untraceable chemicals while they were playing, which were a part of a larger scientific study being conducted by the CIA. Now, it's pretty widely believed that Polybius never did exist and was only made up on the internet. There are, however, a few fake Polybius machines that were made by several different companies, like The Wind. So, sometime back in the 80s, a teenager in Germany named Darius recorded a song on a cassette tape from a German radio station called NDR. In 2004, Darius made a website which he used to garner attention for a few songs on this cassette that were unidentified. All of these songs were found except for one, which Darius's older sister began to search for all over the internet, and the song sounded like this. This song got quite a bit of attention throughout the 2010s, and a subreddit was created dedicated to the identification of the song, where people contacted thousands of different figures involved in the late 20th century German rock scene, but no real leads were ever found. That was until earlier last year. In 2024, people on the subreddit started searching catalogs of a German music event called Hearfest, where many obscure up-and-coming bands had performed. This was a very tedious search until November of 2024, when someone contacted a member of a band called FEX, which claimed that they were the creators of the song, and it was called Subways of Your Mind. This band has since gotten back together and even re-recorded and released the song. Now, I've been following the search for this song since I was in like 6th grade, and I have to say, it's pretty cool that they found this song like 40 years after it was recorded. The song was often referred to as the most mysterious song on the internet. Jeff the Killer image source. Alright, so you've probably seen this picture before. The person or creature in this image is known as Jeff the Killer, and he was one of the earliest creepypastas on the internet. This is also probably one of the most infamous images that's been floating around the internet, but literally nobody knows where the original image comes from. This is clearly an edited image of a real person's face, but nobody knows where the original image is of this person's unedited face. The picture started out floating around on various Japanese discussion boards in the early 2000s, and there are several theories regarding its origins. Some people have claimed that it's a screenshot from a girl's live stream on a website called Stickcam, and some people say it's a screenshot of a video uploaded by some random middle-aged woman on the internet. This image was featured in a YouTube video uploaded in 2007, which is supposed to be some TV broadcast hijack. The reason this image got so popular was because of its association with the creepypasta Jeff the Killer, which basically goes that there's a kid named Jeff who kind of goes crazy and uses a knife to carve a smile into his face and uses a lighter to burn his eyes, and then he goes off killing people. Looking back, it's a pretty uninspired story, but for the early days of the internet, it was revolutionary. I don't know where they'll find the original image, but, you know, we're all rooting for him. Ben Drowned. So, Ben Drowned is the name of an early internet creepypasta and somewhat of an ARG. Basically, this college student finds a shady Majora's Mask cartridge at a garage sale, and when he's leaving the garage sale, the old man who sold him the cartridge yells to him, "Goodbye, Ben." And this is pretty strange because the college student's name isn't Ben. His username is Judaceable, but I'm just gonna call him Alex because that's the creator's real name, and it's a lot fewer syllables. So Alex starts playing this Majora's Mask cartridge, and there's a leftover save file in the game called Ben. So Alex realizes that Ben was the old man's grandson. Alex starts playing on a new save file, but all the NPCs still keep calling him Ben. So he deletes Ben's save file, which causes some pretty weird stuff to happen. The game starts glitching in these really sinister ways, and Alex starts to get really freaked out. After a few days of playing the game, it really starts to consume Alex, and his sanity really goes downhill. Eventually, Alex's roommate takes over his posting because Alex was updating everyone on all of this by posting on 4chan. Alex's roommate explains that Alex has been acting really strange and has these really bad bags under his eyes, and he's kind of just losing his mind. Eventually, Alex says his farewell to everyone on 4chan and basically insinuates that he's gonna. Now, the story of Ben Drowned has two other arcs that come after this one. I'm no expert on the story, but I will say, compared to like the other creepypastas on the internet at this time, like Jeff the Killer, Ben Drowned is actually really good. Sonichu. So if you know who Chris Chen is, you probably also know who Sonichu is, and if you don't know who Chris Chen is, you might want to sit down. Christine Weston Chandler, formerly Christian Weston Chandler, and before that, Christopher Weston Chandler, is considered by some people to be the most well-documented person in the history of the internet. Starting in 2004, when Chris got their first camera, they started filming pretty much every minute of their life. In high school, Chris was given an assignment for an arts class where they had to design an album cover to go on a CD. Originally, he was going to use Sonic the Hedgehog on the album cover, but the assignment strictly stated that you couldn't use any copyrighted media. And because Chris is incapable of conceiving anything original, they decided to merge two copyrighted characters, which would then form a non-copyrighted character. And the two characters they went with were Sonic and Pikachu. Sonichu would go on to be the title character of his own comic book series, which Chris wrote and illustrated themselves, clearly. Chris also made the infamous Sonichu medallion out of modeling clay, and they were selling them for a while, but I don't think they are anymore on account of their current status. In August of 2024, Chris was arrested.
And Christian Sanchu, your goddess blue heart. Essentially, I am a decent and good individual. I believe in everything that is right and positive, and I am literally a goddess. Who is your favorite superhero?
I'd probably go with Spider-Man.
He's gonna come around. You're gonna meet him.
And charged with incest, which I'm not going to get into here. You can look it up if you really want to. As far as I can tell, the charges have been dropped, which is outrageous because Chris literally admitted to it.
Approach the care and caution.
That's good.
And I was direct and upfront with her for the most part.
It's just a whole mess. A858. So, back in 2011, a subreddit was discovered to be posting these very long strings of random letters and numbers, and this subreddit was called r/A858, and then a bunch more letters and numbers. There were hundreds of posts like this, and nobody could seem to figure out how to decrypt them into something that you could understand. There were a few posts that were decrypted that displayed ASCII art, two of which read "No to SOPA." SOPA is referring to the Stop Online Piracy Act, which was proposed in 2011 but never got passed. In 2015, in a subreddit dedicated to solving A858, a new user began posting long chains of letters and numbers similar to what was being posted on the actual A858 subreddit. These posts, however, were much more easily decrypted, which led people to realize that this was the creator of A858 allowing people to ask them questions. They revealed that it was a group of people behind A858 who were doing this as part of their paid work, but didn't say anything else in that regard. When people asked why they were now choosing to answer some questions, they said the audience was getting frustrated. They also said they couldn't disclose the purpose until someone else discovered it. In this AMA, the creators revealed that only one post had been properly decrypted, and literally nobody noticed except them. This decryption was done by a random woman in the UK, but she had since deleted her account, and the creators wouldn't provide any more information. Then, in early 2016, the A858 subreddit went private, only to reopen a few months later stating, "The A858 project has concluded, you may unsubscribe." The subreddit then went private again, and the A858 user deleted their account. Now, from what I can tell, nothing has really come of this since then. The A858 subreddit has been reopened, but only a few posts have been made just showing videos of people trying to solve it. Unfortunately, it looks like this mystery will probably never be solved. And to end off the first layer, we have an absolute classic. Now, there's not really that much to say for this one. The term creepypasta originated on 4chan back in 2007, and it was just a variant of the term copypasta, which came from the phrase copy and paste. These days, creepypasta is just a word used to describe scary stories that people write on the internet, like Jeff the Killer and Slenderman and all that. And that's gonna do it for this video today. I'll be back relatively soon, should be, with the next layer. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.
Into the flame!